Welcome to today's webinar, the Leatherman case study. First to MICR laser checks, then to EPayments. The webinar will be presented by myself, Jeff Jordan from ACOM, and Norman Henry, the Vice President of Finance from Leatherman Tool Group. Just a few housekeeping items first. I want to let everyone know that the phone lines are muted for you folks, so in order to communicate or ask questions, please use your Q&A box in your GoToWebinar control panel. So to do a quick test, can you go ahead and please enter your name in the question box so we can make sure that these things are working? And throughout the presentation, please feel free to use this tool to send the questions to us. We'll go over any questions at the end of the session. And let's see if we have any people that entered their name. There we go. Excellent. Looks like there's a few of you that entered your name. Perfect. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. First, I want to tell you a little bit about ACOM and what we do before we jump into what Leatherman does and what we've helped them do. ACOM has developed and marketed a suite of transactional document solutions targeted to optimizing purchase-to-pay and other corporate document-based processes. Some of our unique differentiators in the market are that we have a strong expertise in the finance department and their document processes, and we've also been doing this for 25 years. So our experience has allowed us to understand these types of processes and challenges. Secondly, we have been a QAD partner for over a decade now, and this allows us to specifically understand your environment and the common challenges you're facing today. So those are some of the things that pull us apart. So let's quickly dive into our tool belt as we speak. ACOM brings 3 solution suites to the market for QAD users. Think about the volume and types of financial documents and reports that all companies have to deal with. Invoices, purchase orders, statements, bills of lading, checks, accounts payable checks, financial reports. These all have to be generated, distributed, and managed, and ACOM specializes in managing these financial documents. ACOM helps organizations optimize this. An example is that purchase-to-pay process that encompasses the business and documents associated with purchasing and payments of goods and services. So we've helped companies, automate their purchase order processing, their check printing and ACH for accounts payable, invoicing, inquiry support, report distribution, and all of this seamlessly with QAD. So today we'll be focusing on our payment solution. For today's case study, this payment solution, Norman's going to take us through the journey of why Leatherman Tool Group needed such a solution, their decision-making process, and the results of partnering with ACOM. So a quick introduction for Norman. Norman Henry's career included working for a variety of size companies, all within the manufacturing sector. Since 1992, he has worked with Leatherman Tool Group, known for its compact multi-purpose tools, where he's Vice President of Financial and Information Technology. In 1994, he oversaw the implementation of MFG Pro with Leatherman Tool Group and has been in much of the evolution process since that time. Norman's a certified management accountant, and as a result of his interest in improving organizations towards their goal, he's certified by the Goldratt Institute as a JONA, which is a study within the theory of constraints, and has been active in the development of throughput accounting practices. So without further ado, Norman, go ahead.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, I joined the Leatherman Tool Group in 1992, so I've been with the company a lot of years now. And as Jeff mentioned, it was in 1994 that they introduced the QAD MFG Pro product to the company, and we implemented that. But pertinent to this discussion, in 2005, we implemented the ACOM Easy Pay Manager solution. And I'm trying to get the slide to advance, Jeff.
Okay, so do you have your GoToWebinar control panel maximized?
Yes.
Is it working now?
No.
Okay. Now is it working? You can go ahead and try it. There you go.
Okay. Leatherman Tool Group is located in Portland, Oregon, where it's not raining today, so that's a good thing for us. We operate with a base of about 400 employees, but that may swell to in excess of 600 workers when we include temporary workers somewhat throughout the year on a seasonality basis. You can see the aerial photographs here of our building. We have a little excess of 100,000 square feet of manufacturing facility, so that gives some indication of the size of our operation. Some people wonder why we are called Leatherman, and the reason for that is not because of leather, but because our product was invented by Tim Leatherman a number of years ago, and he's actually spent 7 years in the process of developing prototypes prior to the establishment of the company and taking a product to market. What has made the company successful is that innovation that he brought and that has continued. Our first product was the PST, which is shown here, and was a huge success for the company. And from that, we've had an evolution of a number of other similar products, which are sampled here, and they retail from $25 to a little over $100, unless one wants to look at our luxury line of products, and those go up to $40,000 because of special engraving and handles made out of gold. So if anyone is interested in purchasing those, I'd be interested in selling those particularly. We also are interested in growth within the organization, and for that we have had a little bit of diversification from our early products. We've introduced a line of pruning products for the gardening market. We also have a variety of folding knives for different applications, and most recently we have added a line of high quality LED lights, and so those are just new for us, and that's giving us growth. We're also known for our value. We receive a lot of testimonials about the use of our products and how it's actually saved lives. Father's Day is not too far ahead, and one indication of the value of our products was shown on the Simpsons television program, and in that Bart and his sister were looking for gifts for their father Homer, and so they went to the mall, and Bart found this fantastic tool, and he said, "I have to get this for Dad." And his sister said, "Oh, all I found was this T-shirt that says, 'Happy Father's Day, you're a great dad.'" And so Bart took the product he purchased, which in the TV show was actually not referred to as a Leatherman tool, but a leather buddy, certainly a takeoff on our product. So he gave it to his father for Father's Day, and his father was very excited, and he said, "I can do anything with this product," and he fantasizes about all these applications, and he said nothing could beat that product. And then he looks at Lisa and says, "What did you give for me?" And he sees the T-shirt. There's high value in our products because of the wide application. But let's take a look at what led us in our organization to our association with ACOM. Back in 2005, on the QAD side, MFG Pro, we were running version EB, In our accounts payable process, we staffed it with one person. We had a single bank account. We processed our checks on a weekly basis. We had about 100 checks per week, all of which were paper checks, and were done, as I said, once a week in a weekly batch process. Now, we could have done them more frequently, even daily, but the reason that we did not was because we, at that time, required manual signatures, and we actually had dual signatures, both from vice presidents, one from me and a signature from a secondary vice president. We didn't have to do that, but that was somewhat policy from the owner of the company at the time. Now, currently, we are running MFG Pro EB 2.1. We now have a little bit more than one FTE in our accounts payable process because we use two persons, but they share some other functions outside of accounts payable. We still have a single bank account, now process about 150 checks per week, of which 60% are paper checks and 40% are electronic ACH payments. But now we do daily payment processing. The process has been made so much easier that we can issue payments daily, and that has a number of advantages for us that we'll probably get into later. And we only apply manual signatures when checks amount exceeds $100,000. In 2005, when we looked at our business issues, our largest one that was really aggravating us, particularly me, was the requirement for manual signatures on the checks. As I indicated, we had dual signatures from vice presidents, and one of the problems there was we had dependency on the availability of those signers. If one of us was in a meeting, then there was delay in getting the checks signed. We recognized that it did not really add value. Early on, the manual signatures added value in that when we went to sign the checks, we reviewed the backup documentation fairly closely. But as the number of checks increased and as other needs increased, we really didn't spend that much time reviewing the backup, so it wasn't much value. Another consideration was a matter of security, in that we had to purchase pre-printed check stock, which had our account information on it from the bank, so we had to keep that in a secured, locked-up area and be careful when we got it out to print checks so that none of that check stock was stolen, which became an increasing concern. We also looked for some operational improvements, concerns about how much time was used in processing and filing, the photocopying of the checks for the filing process, and so those were additional concerns that we looked at in 2005. Let's look a little bit at the traditional check process, which we pretty much followed, but is kind of typical. One will have pre-printed check stock. They have to store it and maintain that actual piece of paper, which then has to be taken out of a controlled environment, put in to the printer to print the checks and the remittance documentation. After the checks are printed, depending on how they're printed, may require bursting, separation. We actually printed our checks even at that time into a laser printer. But following that, then we prepared the checks for mailing. We took the check. We had to make photocopies of the check and put with the backup documentation to place in the file. and finally then the check was mailed to the supplier, and the supplier receives the payment. So we were looking for a solution to some of this, and we established an evaluation team. It's important to include finance and accounts payable function, but also information technology was very important to us as we looked at any solutions, because the one concern was integration with MFG Pro. There were a number of providers out there, but we said we want to be sure it integrates with our MFG Pro system, and so we wanted a supplier that actually had been there, done that with MFG Pro. At that point particularly, we were also concerned about the cost. We wanted to avoid manual signatures, but we did not want to add a lot to the cost within our expenses. So price was important, but also ongoing fees. What would the difference be in the cost for check stock versus the paper we could use with a changed system? And how much work and effort would it take to actually implement this? Those were important considerations, as well as looking ahead to the future to make sure it would handle and support electronic payments, the positive pay system we used with the bank, and that it would support growth as our demands increased. So we started looking at alternative providers, and we looked at ACOM right away. The reason for that really was I had been to the QAD Explore conferences and I saw ACOM there and had talked with ACOM and received direct mail and email from ACOM periodically. So yes, Jeff, that direct mail probably does pay off. It kept ACOM in the forefront. But primarily what got my attention was that they were there at the Explore conference and were a partner with QAD, and so I was assured of the integration. But yes, we did look at other providers. We didn't just say let's go with ACOM because they're a partner with QAD. We did our comparison with other providers and considered cost and the approach along with the integration with MFG Pro, and it was not too difficult for us to make the determination that ACOM would provide the best solution for us. We evaluated ACOM by looking at the information on their website, talking with their sales personnel, but also we did look at a demo, and that was very helpful for us in making our decision, because we were then able to determine whether it really did match our criteria. And we checked references, and so we were pretty thorough. And again, at the end, ACOM was a clear, easy decision for us. So we made the selection for ACOM's Easy Pay Manager, presented the capital expenditure request for this, and it was approved, and we were ready for implementation. So let's look at the use of this solution with QAD. We have the QAD financials, and to process accounts payable, we go into the MFG Pro system. We go to the screen for the payment selection, automatic payment selection, and that looks like this. So if you use QAD and work with accounts payable, you'd recognize this screen, although this is the character mode screen, and you may use the .NET UI. But with this, one simply selects as normal out of MFG Pro the checks or payments to be made, and then those are reviewed. Any changes necessary are made, then sent to someone else for the actual approval process. That might be me or one of my managers who does the approval. And then as part of the approval process, we go back into MFG Pro to the screen for payment of automatic checks. And here's a sample of that screen, again, from the character mode. And with this, we simply enter the bank number that's used, and we send this to, under Output, to EZPM. And when we send it to EZPM, it sends an email alert within our accounts payable team indicating that an FTP check file was sent to EZPM. So if I'm the one who releases those in MFG Pro, the accounts payable administrator receives that email and knows that they were released. I don't have to go and communicate otherwise. The person just gets the email and knows that, oh, they're approved, they're ready to go. So that person then can load the paper stock into the printer for the MICR printing for the checks. And once that is done, then the accounts payable administrator is ready to go into the Easy Pay Manager system and is no longer within the MFG Pro system. They log into EZPM. They go to a tab for activities, tab process payment window, and in that window it lists all the checks to print. They verify from that screen to print with duplicate. And here's what that screen looks like. There's a little place there on the right-hand side to print with duplicate, so it will print a check and it will send a duplicate to our printer, other printer, to print a copy of the check at the same time that it prints the real check. And so that eliminates a step where we used to have to take the real check, take it to the photocopier, and print them. These come out all in one step. Then they click the icon to process the payments, and when they do that, three things happen. An email goes to our accounts payable processing group, which we call our EZPM group, and it provides a process detail report of the detail of the payments. It prints the checks on the microprinter, and as I indicated, simultaneously it sends a file to print the checks on our regular printer. So all that occurs when they click that icon to process. Then they simply can take the checks from the printer and fold them, and as I indicated before, if any payments are in excess of $100,000, we have a manual signature on those, but otherwise they're ready to be mailed out. The copies of the checks are ready to be picked up at the printer station, and then we file those with the copy and the other documentation. That's for issuing regular checks. But we also have our electronic payments, our ACH payments. The first steps within Easy Pay Manager are identical. They log into EZPM. They go to the tab where it shows a list of all the checks to be printed. They again verify the dollar amount and the number of payments. And I should indicate it's not essential, but we do a separate run for paper checks as opposed to our ACH payments. They can be done together. We just like to have a little separate control, so we do them independently. But again, those first stages are identical. Once we've done this last verification, then on that screen that I showed earlier where you just check the box to print a duplicate, in this case, we want to print a duplicate, but a duplicate only. We aren't printing any paper check. And so it prints the duplicate only. They click on the icon to actually process the payment, and this time still does three things. It sends the email to the accounts payable group to provide that detailed report, but it also sends an email to the supplier so that the supplier gets record that we have made the electronic ACH payment. Or some of our suppliers don't want us to send email. They ask us to send a fax, and so it will automatically issue that fax. So it can be a fax or an email. And then the third thing that's done at that time is it prints that copy of the check and the remittance. Then the next step is to click on an icon that creates an FTP file. That is generated actually when we click the icon to process. It sends this additional file to a directory in our system. We go into that and open it. Actually, we also open a website from our bank. And in that bank website, there's a special icon that we click that will then pull that information from the file that was generated out of Easy Pay Manager and then forward that to the bank so that the bank has all the electronic payment information for ACH. So it makes it very simple for us to get that ACH information and forward that directly to the bank. And so that's what is done in that process. Then we have the copies off the printer, and we can file those, and we're done. Thought I'd give some reactions from our staff. First, from our IT manager, and Marjan had indicated to me that, and you can see the quote here, that just this solid implementation process. She was pleased that AECOM provided for us a project manager to assist us in the implementation. We didn't have to create the process. This project manager laid out a lot of the steps that we should go through. And so the process went just very well from an IT aspect. They had a few things that they had to do, but it was not too challenging for them and pretty organized process to follow without too many hiccups along the way. In our company, we have a person who is an MFG Pro analyst, and that's his full-time responsibility is working with MFG Pro. And I talked to him about what he thought this many years after the implementation, because he was involved in that as well. And he indicated that, well, he doesn't really have to do anything with it anymore. He said it just works. Once it got set up, it doesn't require ongoing support. We've gone through an MFG Pro upgrades, but we didn't have to touch the Easy Pay Manager. Again, as he said, it just works, and that's something that's important for us. But perhaps most importantly is the people in our accounts payable side. Rita indicated that she's happy. I remember after the implementation that she was so happy about it, and she indicated that the changes in learning the system were easy, and I wouldn't necessarily say this in front of Rita, but Rita is one that does not take readily to changes, but she just jumped right on this because it made her processing so much easier for her, could eliminate some of those steps, and so she would certainly not want to go back to the days prior to using the changed system. So we've been using it for a number of years now, and Jeff has indicated to me there's some other things we should look at. And one of those is for our ACH. So I indicated about 40% of our payments, number of payments, are ACH. And he indicated that rather than contacting the supplier and having the supplier send us the information to set up the ACH, that there's a self-service system provided by ACOM where we can notify the supplier and say, if you're interested in ACH, you can go to this site and they can put their information in themselves and we wouldn't even have to touch it. And so I can see that that could be quite an advantage, particularly when one is initially setting up the ACH. And we also found that once we offered ACH to our suppliers, they were ready to go for it right away. We didn't have to talk them into it. So it was a good service for them. The other thing that we've been looking at is an enhancement for our document retention to get away from some of the actual paper filing and do that electronically. And so the ACOM also has a system that can be linked right in with that accounts payable flow and make that really smooth to avoid that extra handling of the paper. So those are some future considerations. What I think I'd leave you with is perhaps some thoughts in considering this. I would suggest that if you're looking at some enhancements to your accounts payable process, create a process map showing the flow of all the steps to process a payment. And then look for waste in that process. As we certainly were aware of, the manual signatures did not really add value to the process. It was somewhat of a delusion that it provided more security for us as well. So we wanted to eliminate some of those steps and eliminate some of the steps of taking the paper to the photocopier and so on. But also think about what it does for your suppliers. The thing that we found is certainly the ACH was important for our suppliers, but also by changing the process, we were able to change the timing of our payments and control that more effectively so that we could get away from weekly processing, and it's so easy to do daily processing that we can control the actual disbursements much more closely, and so that's a benefit for us, but it's also a benefit for the suppliers, and that we can indicate just when that payment should go to the supplier. And certainly, if you use QAD, look for a system that integrates well and has been tested in, with QAD. The ACOM works just nice seamlessly with QAD, and so it'll make the process easier, particularly for those people in the AP team. And so those are just some things that I would look at considering. Back to you, Jeff.
Thanks, Norman. Thank you very much for that detailed analysis. I think that's he portrayed, in a sense, what we do well. We've been doing it for 20-plus years now, and really handling that check printing process. To summarize some of the benefits they're receiving, they went from a manual process to a more efficient and automated process. They took that security and brought it to an electronic version of that check stock that they were using, so that there are a few benefits there, but those are the immediate benefits. And as Norman mentioned, in the growth stage, he saw that ACH was going to be important. So it wasn't a driver necessarily, but now he's doing, and Leatherman's doing 40% ACH. And some of the things that he mentioned were the next steps were the fact that you could use vendor self-service, and just want to really kind of briefly talk to that a little bit, where you can actually email your people that are receiving checks. So your vendors that are receiving paper-based checks will get it in the mail. You'll send them an email saying, thank you very much for the goods. You'll receive your payment in the mail. It will also provide a link saying, now Leatherman has an ACH version of payment, please, or an e-payment we call it. Please sign up. They click on the link. They go to the website. They enter the information, accounting, banking information, routing number, vendor ID, and submit that. It will bounce back over to Leatherman via email. Leatherman will then approve that, their AP team, their EasyPM group, and say, okay, we recognize this vendor. Let's approve it. They can approve or reject. When they approve it, it then populates our software. So it eliminates data entry, faxing back and forth, as Norman mentioned, that outreach to your vendor and that communication, which is sometimes just timely and not necessary. So that really helps streamline that process. Then another great thing that he mentioned was the document archival. So when you would hit print, on both payment methods, ACH and check, the archiving will automatically take place. So you'll receive an electronic archival PDF per check and remittance that will go and be filed in a repository under the vendor name. And then the PDF will be named check number or voucher number. And again, this is configurable, but this is the way we see people doing this. So again, one-step process. You don't necessarily have to print a duplicate anymore, Norman. It will just be done automatically. And then on the back end of that, so that's the front end of filing. On the back end, you'll be able to receive and search for that check via QAD. And not only the check, you can also bring other documents in there as well. It's not limited just to Easy Pay Management Archival. But if I'm in, MFG Pro or at, Leatherman's using EB2, I can do a quick search right from there, highlight the text, and then I can search for the check via invoice number, check name, whatever information that you tag that document with. So good things there. And another thing not necessarily on here is the approval process that Leatherman's going through. We have a tool within EasyPM that allows you to have a 2- or 3-step approval process and it's based on rules and conditions. So in Leatherman's example, if there's a check over $100,000, you could then, when you process the payments, it will not be released. A notification will be sent to Norman, and at that point in time, he will approve or reject that $100,000 payment. So we can electronically create that so that it's automated and allocated to the appropriate people. Once Norman says approve, it then can be released. So some good things there as well. And the benefits of that is that it's a modular tool. You can take a realistic approach, and from there go into a rapid deployment once you've decided, hey, this is something we want to pursue. So there are phases that you can realistically implement a tool like this in. So just wanted to add that as well. I think at this point, I think if there's any questions out there, if you have any questions, we can go ahead and kind of open up the Q&A control panel to the folks that are attending and see if there's any questions that you have for us. At this point, I only see some names from the initial response when we did the test, so I don't see many questions at this point in time, which is good. It was very informational today, educational on how Leatherman's doing this, and I think, Norman, you did a great job. I want to thank you very much for helping with this presentation.
Thank you, Jeff.
And here's Norman's contact information in case you need to use him as a reference if you're looking at our tool and you want to speak to him personally on a one-on-one level, want to save those questions for him in particular. Or if you want to buy that gold-plated Leatherman tool, you can also call him as well. Here's his phone number and contact information. Here's my contact information as well. If you want any additional information that you did not receive today, you could feel free to contact me. And I want to thank everyone for attending. Thank you very much.